Every single time a competitor publishes something and you don't, they win a tiny piece of the market's attention and you lose a tiny piece of yours. Once, it's nothing. You would probably never notice, but it compounds. Week after week, that invisible deficit grows until one day a competitor owns a share of your market's mind that you could no longer win back. That growing deficit has a name, and I call it attention debt. This is one piece of a bigger framework in which I call the conversion ecosystem. And my goal is to use this system to help you become the most visible, the most valuable, and the most trusted business in your market. So if that interests you, keep watching. Attention debt is dangerous, exactly because it's silent and slow. No single missed post hurts you in a way that you could feel, so you keep skipping and the debt keeps compounding invisibly until the gap is huge. If you run a business, especially as a founder or a professional service, this debt is quietly building up against you right now, every single week as you go quiet while a competitor does not. In this video, I'm going to show you exactly how attention debt builds up. I will show you why it compounds instead of just ads, and I will show you why it's easy to ignore until it's late, and how to stop building it up and start paying it down so the compounding works in your favor instead of against you. You will not feel it happening, and you will not see it build up until the gap is already huge. I spent 27 years in B2B marketing. The businesses pulling away from their competitors are almost never the most talented ones. They're simply the ones that never stop making the weekly payment. To understand attention debt, you have to first understand a hard truth about attention. It's finite. Your market, the specific group of buyers you want, only have so much attention to give. They can only think about so many businesses, follow so many sources, and hold on to so many names in a mind for any given problem. That pool of attention is limited, and every business in your market is competing for a share of it. Picture your market's attention as a fixed territory, a map divided among all the businesses competing for it. Every business holds some share of that territory, some amount of the market's awareness and the mind space. The shares add up to the whole because the territory is finite. One business gaining shares means another is losing it. Attention is, in a sense, a zero-sum game over a given stretch of time. But here's a key point. Because attention is finite and divided, it's not enough to think about your own marketing in isolation. What matters is the share of the territory relative to your competitors. You could be doing some marketing and still be losing share if your competitors are doing more. The map is always being drawn, and your slice could even shrink while you're technically active if others are more active than you. And here's what turns this into debt rather than just a state. The territory gets redrawn continuously through publishing and presence. Every time a competitor publishes, they claim a little more of that territory. Every time that you stay silent, you defend none of yours, and they take a little bit more. The shifts are tiny each time, but they build up. That buildup is what turns a small disadvantage into a compounding debt. So attention is not an unlimited resource that you can capture whenever you get around to it. It's a finite territory being constantly fought over, and your share is always growing or shrinking relative to your competitors based on who shows up more consistently. Once you see attention this way, you understand why silence is not neutral. Silence is surrender of the territory, and surrender territory is the start of debt. That territory, in the end, is built out of what I call familiarity advantage. Every share you surrender is a share a competitor gets to claim instead. Let's look at exactly how attention debt builds up step by tiny step. The mechanism is what makes it so sneaky. It builds through a simple repeated exchange. A competitor publishes something useful. They gain a small amount of your market's attention, a little more familiarity, and a little bit more mind share. In the same moment, not by publishing, you gain nothing, and your relative share slips slightly. That single exchange is one small entry in the ledger of attention debt. Now repeat that exchange every week. Your competitors publish and claim a little more attention. Every week that you stay silent, you give up a little more. Each individual exchange is trivial, far too small to notice or even feel, but they happen nonstop and they all point in the same direction. Competitors build up attention and you build up debt. The ledger grows entry by entry every week, and this is why you never feel it happening. Every single week of mispublishing costs you almost nothing that you can measure. You skip a week and nothing bad visibly happens. So your brain decides that skipping is fine, that publishing this week doesn't really matter. But that conclusion comes from looking at one exchange in isolation. When the damage comes from thousands of them stacking up, each one is tiny, but the sum is huge. This is exactly how financial debt traps people, which is why the comparison fits well. A single small purchase on credit feels harmless, but many small purchases plus compounding interest built into a crushing debt that seems to appear out of nowhere. Attention debt works the same way. Each skipped piece of content is a small purchase that you didn't even notice making. The debt compounds quietly until suddenly it's painfully large. So the buildup of attention debt is a death by 1,000 unnoticed cuts. No single one matters, but the pattern of all of them matters enormously. And because no single exchange is painful, nothing stops you from continuing the pattern. That is exactly why the debt grows unchecked until the gap between you and a competitor becomes a huge chasm. Attention debt would be serious even if it merely added up. But it does something even worse. It compounds. The gap does not just grow at a steady pace, it grows faster and faster because attention itself creates more attention. Understanding why it compounds is what shows how dangerous it truly is. Here's how the compounding works. The more attention a competitor has, the more easy it is to gain some more. A business that is already familiar and present gets shared more, recommended more, found more easily, and remembered more readily. Their existing attention makes each new piece of content work harder, reach further, and stick better. So attention is just not added, it multiplies on the base that already exists. And the rich get richer. Now apply that gap between you and a consistent competitor. As they build up attention, their build-up speeds up because their growing presence makes each new effort more effective. Meanwhile, your silence means you have no growing base to build on. So the gap doesn't widen at a steady pace, it widens faster and faster as their compounding pulls them further ahead while you stay flat. The debt curve bends steeply upwards over time. This is why a competitor who started roughly at your level can, over a couple of years, end up so far ahead that catching them feels almost impossible. It's not that they worked proportionally harder, their consistent presence compounded while your sporadic presence did not. Compounding, given times, turns small, steady differences in behavior into enormous gaps. And the same compounding that works against you when you're silent works for you when you're consistent. That is the hopeful flip side that we'll get into later. But first, let's sit with the danger. Attention debt compounds. That means every week you let it grow and it's just not falling a little behind. You're falling behind at a speed up rate, making the eventual climb back steeper and steeper. Time is not neutral here. Time makes the debt worse faster. We have touched on why attention debt hides, but it's worth looking at it directly because its invisibility is the single biggest reason why businesses fall victim to it. If you could feel the debt building up, you would never let it happen. The trouble is that everything about it is built by its nature to stay hidden until it's severe. The first reason is it hides the one we covered. No single missed piece of content produces a visible consequence. The feedback that would warn you simply is not there in the short term. You skip publishing and your business looks exactly the same the next day. There's no alarm, no immediate cost, nothing telling you that a transaction just went against you. The absence of short-term feedback lets the pattern continue unchecked. The second reason is that the damage shows up as an absence, not an event. Attention debt does not cause bad things to happen. It causes good things not to happen. Opportunities that would have come to a more present business simply don't come to you. And it's very hard to notice the absence of something. You can't see the buyers who chose a more familiar competitor or the shortlist that you didn't make. The cost is real but invisible because it's made out of things that did not occur. This is a close cousin of what I call invisible loss. The cost of deals you never knew you had a shot at. This is the exact leak the conversion ecosystem is designed to seal. The third reason is that when the consequences finally do become visible, they rarely get pinned on attention debt. By the time you notice a competitor dominating your market, the debt has been compounding for years, and the connection to all those individually skipped weeks is long lost. You blame the competitor's budget, or luck, or some recent move, never realizing their advantage was built over thousands of small consistencies against your thousands of small silences. The cause stays hidden even in hindsight. So attention debt is the perfect trap. No short-term feedback to warn you, damage that shows up only as invisible absence, and consequences that don't get traced back to a real cause even when they finally appear. This is why naming it matters so much. Once you understand that silence is building up a compounding debt, you can act on it on purpose. You stop being lulled by the absence of any immediate pain into letting the debt grow until it's overwhelming. So how do you fight attention debt? The answer is almost embarrassingly simple to state and genuinely hard to do. Consistency. You pay down attention debt the same way it builds up, one piece at a time, except now the exchanges run in your favor. Every time you publish something useful, you claim a little attention and service your debt. Do that consistently and you stop the debt from growing and start paying it down. Look at publishing this way. It changes how you treat it. Each piece of content is not just a piece of content. It's a payment against your attention debt and a claim on your market's attention. Skip it and the debt grows. Make it and the debt shrinks while your share of the territory grows. This reframe turns the abstract virtue of consistency into a concrete financial discipline. You are servicing a debt that compounds if you ignore it. And notice that consistency matters more than brilliance, just as it did with familiarity. A steady stream of useful, ordinary content pays down the debt reliably, because the debt builds through consistency and gets paid down through consistency as well. An occasional brilliant piece surrounded by silence does little because the silence lets the debt keep compounding between brilliant moments. The discipline of showing up regularly beats the occasional masterpiece for the same reason regular debt payments beat one large payment surrounded by mounting interest. This is why the businesses that win the attention game are rarely the most creative or the best resourced. They are the most consistent because they publish reliably week after week, year after year. They service the attention debt continuously and claim the territory steadily, while inconsistent competitors let the debt compound. Over time, the consistent business pulls ahead, not through brilliance, but through relentless, disciplined presence. Consistency is the whole game, so the practical prescription is clear. Commit to consistent publishing and treat every piece as a non-negotiable payment against a compounding debt. Not when you feel inspired, not when you happen to need business, consistently as a discipline, because the debt builds up whether or not you feel like publishing, and only consistent presence pays it down. Here's the genuinely exciting part. The reason that all this discipline is worth it. The same compounding that makes attention debt so dangerous when you're silent becomes powerful when you're consistent. Compounding doesn't care which direction it runs. Ignore your attention and it compounds against you. Build up consistency and it compounds for you. That changes everything. When you publish consistently, you start building up attention, and that growing attention makes each new piece work harder, just as it did for your competitors. Your growing presence gets you shared more, found more, remembered more, so each new effort reaches further and sticks better. You build a base, and that base compounds. The same speeding up curve that pulled consistent competitors ahead of you now pulls you ahead once you're the consistent one. This means consistency does not just pay down your debt. Eventually, it builds a surplus, and compounding leads to attention that becomes very hard for inconsistent competitors to challenge. Once your presence is compounding, a competitor who shows up sporadically can't easily catch you. They're fighting your accelerating buildup with their flat, occasional effort. You have turned attention debt inside out. Now that they're the ones falling behind at a speed up rate, this is the same force behind what I call the library effect, where a body of work grows in value faster than it grows in size. This is what makes it such a durable, hard to copy advantage. Compounding rewards time and consistency, both of which are hard for competitors to fake or shortcut. A competitor can't buy their way instantly into the compounding attention that you have built over the years through consistency. They would have to put the same sustained disciplined presence over the same amount of time, and most businesses won't, because the discipline is hard and the early returns are invisible. So your compound attention lead is protected by the very difficulty of building it. So the whole picture comes down to a single choice you make every single week. Let your attention compound against you through silence, building a debt that gets harder and harder to repay, or build the attention through consistency until it compounds in your favor into a lead competitors can't catch. Same force, opposite direction. The direction is decided entirely by whether you show up consistently or not. Attention debt, in the end, is just compounding, waiting to be pointed in the right way. So let's put this all together. Attention is a finite territory constantly divided among your competitors. Your share is always growing or shrinking based on who shows up more consistently. Every time a competitor publishes and you stay silent, you build up attention debt. It happens in tiny, unnoticed exchanges that compound, not just add up over time, because attention creates more attention. It's dangerously easy to ignore. No single missed piece hurts. The damage shows up only as invisible absence. The consequences don't get traced to the real cause even when they finally appear. You pay it down through consistency. Treat every published piece as a payment against a compounding debt and a claim on a territory where steady presence beats the occasional masterpiece. And because compounding doesn't care which direction it runs, the same force that buried you in debt through silence builds an unbeatable lead through consistency. So show up reliably and point the compounding in your favor, because every week you're either paying down the debt or letting it grow against you at a speed up race. There is no neutral. There's only the direction that you choose. This connects to a larger system, the conversion ecosystem. And every video here builds on another piece of it with more depth in the description. If this video is useful, then make sure you watch this next one. Remember, the most visible, the most valuable, the most trusted business in your market wins. The whole point of the conversion ecosystem is to help you build a system that makes you all three.